You know, I make these videos and I put them on YouTube. And I also travel a lot around the world. And whenever I'm in town in Houston, the person who does my filming and editing comes over and we plan a weekend and film. But she canceled Pat last weekend, and so I'm only in town for 4 days and then we didn't get to film. But people are wanting videos. So we're going to film we're going to film Vav. We're doing 2 letters tonight. It'll probably take 1 hour on Vav. I'm not going to have my stick, and I'm not going to be pointing at the screen, but the slides are pretty self-explanatory. I'm probably going to be looking more toward the camera and not at y'all. And then in a week or 2, it'll be on YouTube for those who have to leave at 7:20. Not naming any names. Because I don't know your name, that's why. No, is it Brian? Yes. And Star. So, after 1 hour, Vav will be finished. We'll stop the film. Then you can go pee or do whatever you want to do for 10 minutes. And we'll then go on and do the next letter. And we'll see if this works. I usually have a map behind me, but I always have my tulips in every film. And I have my big mug in every film. And my stick. Where's my stick? This is not my stick. I know, but I have a little stick. But this can work.
You let me know when you want me to put the thing.
Where's your stick? Just a little stick.
I don't need a little stick. Oh, look, I'm moving this. Oh, that's bad. I know, she spends. Now, I have a stick that I just got off of a tree in front of my house, and it's the same stick we use in every video. But foolish consistency is the hobgoblin of little minds. So I don't need that particular. Oh, that's nice. Okay.
Hey, we're live.
We're live. Okay, Deborah, you want to be the button pusher? Where's the camera that's filming for the YouTube? Ah. Okay. Now, do you know which button to push? That would work. Yeah, let's make sure we hit the right button. And she can cut out stuff here at the beginning. When you push the button, you point to me, and then we usually do a countdown, 3, 2, 1. Huh?
So I need to go get my chili.
No. Just tell me when it's pushed, and then you can.
Down to 5, baby.
All right.
3, 2.
Hey, shalom, shalom from your Dutch Uncle John, here to tell you what it is about the letter Vav. You know, we're doing the whole Hebrew alphabet, and I've told you that every Hebrew letter has a partner. We did the first one, we did Aleph, and you would just assume that Aleph's partner would be Bet, the second letter. But, of course, God's ways are so far above our ways, it's not. The Aleph, its partner is the Tav. And most of you already know Aleph Tav, that's huge, right? Today, we're going to cover a new letter, the letter Vav. Vav is the sixth letter of the Hebrew alphabet. And Vav's partner is the Zayin, which is right next to it. In fact, the two kind of look alike, okay? But we're going to focus on the Vav today. The Vav, its ancient picture is a hook or a nail, and it's also an upright man, okay? It's the sixth letter. You know, man's number is 6, all right? And the Vav, it's a versatile letter. It makes lots of different sounds. It obviously makes the V sound, as in visit, okay? It also makes the oo sound, as in new, and it also makes the O sound, sometimes as in York, or O, okay, long O even. So it shows up in different sounds. But mostly, it's used because it's a nail or a hook. And what do nails do? What do hooks do? They connect things. And in Hebrew, they use the letter Vav for the word and. Okay? So I'm going to, an English sentence would be, but with the Vav as an and. Last night, I ate meatloaf, va potatoes, va green beans, va pecan pie. Va, 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 va. You put the va in between each word, and it is and. Make sense? Good. The first time we see a vav is in Genesis 1:1, and it shows up in the 6th word. Okay? Bereshit bara Elohim et hashemayim va'et haaretz. The va'et, the va, that's the heavens and the earth. Okay? Nice. And it's nice because it's actually connecting. I told you a vav is an upright man. It's connecting the heavens with the earth. The heavens is the spiritual. The earth is the physical. And there needs to be one connector that can connect the spiritual with the physical. Of course, Yeshua HaMashiach, Jesus the Christ, he is that connector that's going to connect the heavens and the earth. It's the 22nd letter of Genesis 1:1, which is kind of interesting because there's 22 letters in the Hebrew alphabet. All right, and this is maybe the connector of all those letters, the Vav. Vav is not the most common used letter. We did a video a while back on the letter Yod. Yod is 31,522. That is the most commonly used letter of the Hebrew alphabet. But Vav is the second most used letter, okay, with 30,509. I don't know what you're going to do with that. Which is interesting. If you take the third most used letter, which is the Hey, so you have the three most used letters, the Vav, the Hey, the Yod, the Hey, the Vav. With those three letters, you can spell Yud Hey Vav Hey, God's name. And that's interesting that he uses the three most used letters to spell his name. And it's interesting also that Yod, remember, is hand. The letter Hey is a little man with his hand in the air. Hey, wow, something is going to be revealed. A blessing is coming. The letter Vav, we said, is a nail. And then you have another Hey, another thing is going to be revealed. So if you look at his name, Yod Hey Vav Hey, the hand reveals, the nail reveals. This lets you know who that connector is. This is really pointing God's name. You know, and I tell my Jewish friends, listen, I'm just some guy living in Texas, and I see these four letters, Yud Hey Vav Hey, and I realize it says, wow, the hand reveals, the nail reveals. You don't think God saw that when he was putting his language together? This is not a coincidence. It was intentional. He chose that name because it points to him. Yud Hey Vav Hey, the hand reveals, the nail reveals. Beautiful. And of course, we're talking about Yeshua, right? Yeshua has a Vav in it. And we know, we've talked about this before, that Yeshua sits at the right hand of God. So here I have a picture of the right hand of God. Okay? Notice the thumb is like a yod. The next three fingers is a shin. The pinky is a vav. And here you have the ayin in your hand where it makes the kind of the Y shape. So when God says that the Messiah will sit at my right hand, sure enough, Yeshua is at God's right hand. Isn't that cool? We also see the vav in the letter aleph. We told you aleph it's actually made up of three letters. It's made up of a yod, which is a hand. It's made up of another yod, another hand. And what we have is we have God's hand reaching down. We have man's hand reaching up. But God's hand is perfect, and man's hand is sinful, and the two cannot connect. We need something to connect these two. We need a nail. Nails connect. An upright man. And that upright man needs to humble himself, and that then connects God with man. Yeshua, he is that upright man who is connecting God with man. Beautiful. Genesis 1:27. It says, God created man in his own image. In the image of God, he created them. Male and female, he created them. Here it is also in the Hebrew. I want you to look at the last line where it says male and female, he created them. Remember, we're created in the image of God. And we're created in his image. And here it is, male and female. Zakar, va, nekabah. You can see the vav, that's the connector, and. Now, I want to show you this, because we're going to go back to that male and female, all right? We know the word fire. We've talked about this in previous videos. It's the aleph shin. Aleph, remember, is strength. Shin represents tooth or destruction. So you put these two together, aleph shin, it's strong destruction. What destroys everything? And that would be fire. It's the word aish in Hebrew. We get the word ash from this, okay? And if you take, remember, we're made in God's image, so if you take the aish and you put a yod in it, you form the word ish, which is the word for man. If you put a hey on the end, remember, hey is something's going to be revealed. Put a hey on the end, you get isha, which is woman. And this is very clever, but the two letters that you're adding, that he added to the fire, he added a yod and a hey. Yod hey is Yah. He put his name in the fire to form man and form woman. But the point I'm going to make is that hey that he tacks on at the end, hey is a feminine suffix. So whenever you see a Hebrew word, it has the hey on the end, because Hebrew has masculine and feminine words. Okay, we don't have that in English, Spanish. Other languages do have gender to their words. Hebrew is one of them. And the hey ending is a feminine suffix. So, now knowing that, and we're made in God's image, well, here's God's name, the Yod Hey Vav Hey. We already know that the Vav means and. we know at the beginning, Yod-Hey is Yah. That's God. And I think that's God, the male part of God. Because at the end of his name, he has a Hey, which is the feminine ending. I don't believe God is half woman. I don't believe God is a woman. But God does have a feminine side to him. And it says, we're made in his image, male and female, he created them. So males would be in his image, and female is in his image in whatever form, but it's kind of showing that in his name, because you have Yah and a female ending. It's something to consider. And now I've told you that the Vav, represents and. And here I found a verse here in Numbers 7, verse 1, where he's just rattling off a string of things. Okay, it came to pass on that day Moses finished setting up the tabernacle, that he anointed it, and he sanctified it, and all its vessels, and the altar, all its vessels, he anointed them, sanctified them. You see the and. Okay? Now, how do you know if a word begins with a vav? Is it and, or is it some other word? It turns out there are only three Hebrew words begin with vav. It's a rare thing to begin a word with vav in Hebrew. One of them is the word vav, which is nail, or the plural of it is vavim. Okay? The other two, one of them is in Proverbs 21:8. It's the word vazar, guilty. And one of them is in Genesis 11:30. It's valad, and the word child. Sometimes, by the way, that letter vav can also, some people pronounce it as a W sound, walad or valad. And I don't know which branch of Judaism pronounces which. Okay, I kind of stick with the v sound on all of them. And here's that verse, Genesis 11:30, where it shows up as Sarai was barren. She had no valad, no child. Exodus 27:10, it's describing the sanctuary, and it talks about the hooks that hold up the curtains, and that's the vavim. And Proverbs 21:8 says, the way of the vazar, the guilty man, is crooked, but as for the pure, his conduct is upright. So, for the most part, when you see a vav in the front, it's and, okay, except for these exceptions. Now, God uses this. Look in Genesis 1:1. Of course, we know Genesis 1:1 begins, Bereshit bara Elohim. It begins with a bet, correct? In fact, it's an enlarged bet. I have it here in red. It's the first letter, bet, Bereshit. But every other verse in chapter 1, not only in chapter 1, all the way through Creator Week, from 1:2 until chapter 2, verse 3, that's Creator Week. Every verse begins with a vav. And if you go through the first 5 chapters of the Bible in Genesis, almost every verse begins with a vav. There are just a very few exceptions. So vav is a very important letter. You know, when I was in school, we were taught to write, and we were always told, don't begin a sentence with and. Well, God did not get that lesson, because he begins lots of them with that, okay? Now, here's something else cool. Vav, by the way, it has lots of jobs. And here's one of them. We see in Genesis 1:3. Now, Genesis 1:1, you know, this is, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. That's God the Father. In verse 2, it says, and the earth was without form and void, and the Spirit of God fluttered over the water. So in verse 1, you have God the Father. In verse 2, you've got the Spirit of God. And because I believe in a complex unity, right? That's the three in one God. There's one God. You got it? One God. That's what I believe. But he's holy. He's unique. He's something that nothing else is. His oneness is three. How? I can't explain it, but it is. Okay, so if he's the Father in verse 1 and he's the Spirit in verse 2, it kind of logically follows that the Son is going to show up in verse 3, and lo and behold, and God said, "Be light," and light was. And that light, Yeshua Jesus claimed to be. He said, "I am the light of the world." Okay? But here it is in the Hebrew. Okay, testing, we good? Okay. I'll just set it there. Okay. 3, 2, 1. So if the Father is showing up in verse 1, and we have the Spirit showing up in verse 2, verse 3 is Yeshua, the Son. He claimed to be the light of the world. And verse 3 says, and God said, "Be light," and light was. Okay? That the Son is this light we're talking about. In Hebrew, it says, "Vayomer Elohim, Yehi Or, Vayi Or." What is it? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 words? Okay? Vayomer Elohim is, and said God. Notice Vayomer begins with a vav, right? That's and, said God. Yehi is the word for be, or is light. Now here's something clever that the letter vav does. If you take and put a vav in front of a verb that's present tense, it causes it to become past tense. Well, that's clever. You can see it here. Yehi is yud hey yud. And then that's be or, be light. Then the next one says vayi or. There's a vav in front of the same verb, yud hey yud. That causes that present tense to become past tense. Here's an example of that, and there's many examples in the Bible of that. But this is just, I'm not teaching you deep Hebrew. I'm just giving you examples so that you'll go out and then you'll start putting the pieces together and getting the message that God is trying to relay to us. Okay, in Psalm 119, verses 40 through 48. Now, in English, here they all are. Verse 41, "May your loving devotion come to me, O Lord, your salvation according to your promise. Then I can answer him who taunts." Okay, I'm not going to read them all. There's nothing that stands out when I look at that in English. But if you look at it in the Hebrew, if you've ever noticed Psalm 119, when I was a kid and you're looking through while the preacher's up there talking, and if I didn't have a pen to doodle on my program, I would actually open up the Pew Bible and look for things. What's the shortest verse? What's the longest verse? What's the longest chapter? Psalm 119 is the longest chapter. I think there's 176 verses. And I used to notice above every chunk of verses, there would be this little mark. And I didn't understand what that mark was. Now I realize it's the Hebrew alphabet. And what he's done is the first 8 verses of Psalm 119, every line begins with an aleph. Then the next 8 verses, verses 9 through 16, all begin with a bet. Then the next 8 begin with a gimel. And when you get down to verse 40, that's the 6th, right? Every verse begins with a vav. It wouldn't translate well in English, because how are you going to start 8 verses with an X or with a Z, you know? But it does work nicely in Hebrew, and he's done that. Very nice, I thought. Okay, now here's another cool thing that happens with the vav. If you put a vav at the end of a noun, it causes masculine possessive. So here I have a Proverbs 30, verse 4. What is his name? You can read this sentence in Hebrew. It's Ma Shemu. Ma, we know Ma is what? We learn that whenever the Jews came out in the wilderness one morning, and there was this stuff all over the ground, and they looked at it and they said, Ma na, what is it? And God said, yes, that's what we're going to call it, Ma-na. And that's how it got its name. So we know Ma is what? Also, I've told you this before, I have friends in Israel, and they have a son who's back in his bedroom, and he yells something, and Mom's in the kitchen, and she yells, Ma! What? It's no different than in English, okay? So Ma is what? Shemu, Shem is name. We see this with when Noah had 3 kids, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. The word Shem means name. Noah says to his wife, what do you want to, what should be his Shem? And she said, yes, Shem. His name was name, okay? And if you put a vav on the end, Shemu, his name. Put a hey on the end, her name. Don't quote me on that, but I think that's correct. Ma Shemu, what is his name? If you continue reading verse 4 of Proverbs 30, and it says, and what is the name of his son? You can read that. Vama, what's Vama? And what? Shem, name. Benu, Ben is son. Put a vav on the end. Benu. And what name his son? You're reading Hebrew. Isn't this cool? All right. I'll have a drink to that. Okay. By the way, if you take that Proverbs 30 and you put it in a grid, and I put it 22 letters across. This is just a little freebie I'm going to throw in. You put it 22 letters across. Why 22? Because that's how many Hebrew letters are in the alphabet. But you look down in the middle row there, it has, and what is the name of his son? Right there in the middle, I don't know if you can see that, there's a Hey Shin Mem. And Hey Shin Mem is Hashem. That's his name. And running vertically through it is Yeshua. Yud, Shin, Vav, Ayin. It actually answers the question, what is his name, and what is the name of his son, it's all right there. Very cool. And if you're really, really, really cool, sitting on top of that, it forms a cross, are the three letters that spell Ruach. It's the word spirit. So you have Father, Son, and Spirit all in this verse. And it's a verse that's asking about what is his name, Hashem, and what is the name of his son, Yeshua. It answers it in that verse. Figure that one out. Figure that one out, Jewish friends, and explain how God did that and why would he do that. Okay. Now, you all know the temple, okay? And prior to the temple, they had a tabernacle. And this was kind of like the portable mobile temple, right? This is when they first got started in the wilderness. And it had lots and lots of rules how to build it. First of all, they made an enclosure, okay, with curtains that hung down on all four sides. And then there was one door that went into that enclosure. That's significant. One door is pointing to the fact there is one way to God, right? There's not 50 doors there. There's one door. And as soon as you entered this compound, it came to the brazen altar. That's where you had to do your sacrifice. And that's very telling. If you want to approach God, the first thing you better have is you better have the right sacrifice. Then the priest behind the brazen altar was what was called the laver. It was a large, round container of water where the priest who just did the sacrifice, now he has to bathe, clean himself. Then he would put on clean garments, and then he could actually enter into the tabernacle. Once you were in the tabernacle, it had pieces of the showbread on the right, the menorah on the left. Straight ahead was the altar of incense, and then there was a veil, a curtain. And behind that curtain was the Ark of the Covenant and the mercy seat. Notice, we know seven is God's number, and there are 7 pieces of furniture total in this whole thing, okay? You got the brazen altar, the laver, the table of showbread, the menorah, the altar of incense, the Ark of the Covenant, and the mercy seat. Again, 7. And that veil, the veil separated the Holy of Holies from just the holy place on the front. Only the high priest could go behind the veil to the mercy seat and put the blood on the mercy seat once a year on Yom Kippur. Okay, now that veil, by the way, I was talking to a friend from high school years ago, and I was explaining to her where it talks about that the veil, when Jesus is crucified, and when he gave up the ghost, it says that the sun turned black and there was an earthquake and the veil was rent. And she said, what does that mean? And I explained that veil that separated the Holy of Holies from the holy place, that veil was torn, rent down the middle. No longer is it just the high priest that can go behind the curtain, behind the veil, and put the blood. We can all go right up to the throne of God through Jesus' sacrifice. That curtain was torn. That's what that phrase means. I just assume everybody knows that, but not everybody knows that, okay? Because she was I don't want to talk about her. Okay. But she should have known this, and she didn't. All right. Okay, now, why am I even talking about the tabernacle? Because this whole compound that has these curtains the whole way around the compound, those curtains hang on nails. I have them here, little orange nails. The Bible calls them vavim. Those are vavs, nails. So you have one as a vav. You have many, you have vavim. Very nice, right? And so they're holding up pieces of white material that surround the whole compound. Now, let's look at a Torah scroll. A Torah scroll This is where they write the Torah, right? And it's one continuous parchment. It's actually made of like animal skins that are treated, and it takes a lot of work to write a Torah scroll. When they're copying one, they check the letter, they write the letter. He checks it, everybody good? Okay, next letter. They look at it, they write the letter, they check it. When they come to the name of God, they have to stop, go, bathe, put on clean clothes, come back, and now write the name of God. And if God's name shows up 2 words later, they stop, go, bathe, put on clean clothes. You understand? It is, and that is why the Torah today, it's what God gave. God asked the Jews, God instructed the Jews to keep his word. They didn't interpret it correctly, but they did keep it. God bless them. Because now we can find all these miracles and these beautiful God incidences in his word because they have passed it on to us. And of course, it only transfers into Hebrew, right? That's where you see all these miraculous things. I know you got these people out there who, if King James English was good enough for Jesus, then it's good enough for me. Well, I'm sorry. He didn't speak King James English, okay? You should go back to the original. Anyway, looking at a Torah scroll, there they are. They have one continuous paper or piece here, and it has these columns that's justified on both sides. The top letter, the first letter of every Torah scroll, on every page is a Vav. It's a picture, it's a copy of the whole tabernacle picture where those curtains were hanging. And I say every column begins with a Vav asterisk, except Genesis 1:1. Because Genesis 1:1 we know begins Bereshit bara, begins with a bet, right? But every other page begins with a Vav. All right. Now, this is kind of clever, and we've talked about this in other videos, but it's clever enough that it should come up again. Genesis 2:4, it says, "These are the generations of the heavens and the earth when they were created in the day which Yahweh God made the earth and the heavens." These are the generations. The word generations in Hebrew is toldot. It's a tav, vav, lamed, dalet, vav, tav. Notice the word toldot has 2 vavs in it. The second letter and the 5th letter. It appears twice. And what is vav? It's a nail or it's an upright man. Now, that's verse 2:4. And 2:4 happens before the fall, right? Chapter 3 is the fall where they ate the fruit and bad things happen. So in 2-4, when he says these are the generations, everything is still perfect. Then you come to chapter 5 of Genesis, and it says, this is the book of the generations of Adam. In the day when God created man, he made him in the likeness of God. Notice the word toldot here. It's missing a vav. The 5th letter should be a vav. It's misspelled. Man has fallen in chapter 3. And now that it's missing an upright man. Man is incomplete. It's very cool. And from here on, it's always misspelled until you get to Ruth 4:8. In Ruth 4:8, it says, now these are the generations of Perez. To Perez was born Hezron. And here, the word generations is spelled correctly again. Well, why all of a sudden? What happened? Okay. Well, this generations that they're talking about, remember you have Ruth and Boaz. And actually, you can even go back to Judah and Tamar. From Judah and Tamar, you have, remember, the Messiah is coming through Judah. So Judah and Tamar have twins, Zerah and what's the other one's name? Begins with a, I don't remember. Zerah and Perez. Perez is the one that the line is going to go through. Perez has Hezron. Hezron has Ram. Ram has Aminadab. Aminadab has Nahshon. Nahshon has Salmon. Salmon has Boaz. Boaz has Obed. Obed has Jesse. Jesse has David. David, that's the messianic line. Because of Judah and Tamar, that messianic line is now established because it's going to be the son of David who is the Messiah. So now that the messianic line is established, now he respells Toldot with that upright man. The Vav is back. How cool is this? Here's the verse. And now these are the generations of Perez. To Perez was born Hezron. Look at the first line. The first line is just these two letters, or two words. These are the generations. These are the generations adds up to, if you put the gematria values in, 888. Why is that important? Because Yeshua's name in Greek adds up to 888. That missing Vav has been restored. The messianic line is set. And Toldot received its Vav, second Vav back. And Jesus is that upright man who brings forth those generations again. That's just very cool. In Jeremiah 6:14, it says, they have healed the brokenness of my people superficially, saying peace, peace, but there is no peace. Here's a verse that has the word peace 3 times. You should know the Hebrew word for peace, right? I begin all my videos saying it twice. Shalom, shalom. That's the word peace. Let's look at the word shalom and see what that vav has to do there. We're going to cut this out because some slides are missing. Where did they go? Where did they go? Hi, Josephina. How are you? She's the editor. I don't know where the slides are, but I can do it without them. So let's look at the word shalom. It's 4 letters. It's a shin. What is shin? Shin is destruction, teeth, right? Lamed is a shepherd's crook, right? The lamed. And if you are the shepherd and you're holding the shepherd's crook, you have the authority. So lamed has a lot to do with authority. What is vav? Vav is the nail. It's the connector. It connects things, okay? And mem, if we haven't covered mem yet, but mem represents water or chaos. Water is always moving and, okay, it's chaotic. So if you look at the 4 letters, destruction, authority, nail, chaos. If you want God's shalom, if you want God's peace, you are to destroy the authority that is attached to your chaos. Whatever chaos you have in life, whatever authority is ruling that chaos, destroy it. And you will have God's shalom. Very nice how he put that in there. Okay? Now, here's a cool thing that he did. In Numbers 25, verses 1 through 3, we'll just read it here. While Israel remained at Shittim, the people began to play the harlot with the daughters of Moab. Right? They were not supposed to be mixing with these other groups, right? Verse 2, for they invited the people to the sacrifices of their gods, and the people ate and bowed down to their gods. Ooh, bad. So Israel joined themselves to Baal of Peor, and the Lord was angry against Israel. The Lord said to Moses, take all the leaders of the people and execute them in broad daylight before the Lord, so that the fierce anger of the Lord may turn away from Israel. So Moses said to the judges of Israel, each of you slay his men who have joined themselves to Baal of Peor. Verse 6, then behold, one of the sons of Israel came and brought to his relatives a Midianite woman in the sight of Moses and in the sight of all the congregation of the sons of Israel, while they were weeping at the doorway of the tent of meeting. So, what's happening? Some of the Israelites are mixing with the foreigners. They're bowing down to their gods. God tells Moses, you take those and you kill them, execute them in front of everybody, because they're mixing and mingling with the foreigners. And while this is going on, behold, an Israelite guy brings a Midianite woman right in the crowd in front of everybody. So he's blatantly doing this. Verse 7, when Phinehas, the son of Eleazar, the son of Aaron, the priest, saw it, he arose from the midst of the congregation, and he took a spear in his hand. And he went after the man of Israel into the tent and pierced both of them through, the man of Israel and the woman, through the body. So the plague on the sons of Israel was checked, and those who died by the plague were 24,000. Okay, so you see what's happened? A guy blatantly just brings a woman in, a foreigner, and he's going in the tent with her. And this Phinehas, he was so upset. And by the way, there's a plague. God has sent this plague to kill all the Israelites who are doing this, mixing and mingling. And Phinehas takes a sword and goes into the tent and runs them both through with the sword. Then the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, Phinehas, oh, by the way, Phinehas is the son of Eleazar, the son of Aaron. So Aaron is Moses' brother. Aaron is the first high priest. So Phinehas has some credentials of who he is. Verse 11, Phinehas, the son of Eleazar, the son of Aaron the priest, has turned away my wrath from the sons of Israel, in that he was jealous with my jealousy among them, so that I did not destroy the sons of Israel in my jealousy. Therefore say, behold, I give him my covenant of peace. And it shall be for him and his descendants after him a covenant of perpetual priesthood, because he was jealous for his God and made atonement for the sons of Israel. So God is actually happy with Phinehas for running these two through with a spear. And he's giving him his covenant of peace. Verse 14, it says the name of the slain man in Israel was Zimri, and the woman's name was Cosbi, the daughter of Zur. Okay. But here's the one I want to focus on. Verse 12. Therefore tell him, I am making my covenant of peace with him. Here I have it in English, and below I have it in the Hebrew. And I want you to look close at the Hebrew. Do you see anything out of place? I will tell you, in the last word is shalom. Here's a little bit larger. Do you see in the shalom, the last word, it's a shin, lamed, vav, mem. That vav is broken. It's the only place in the Torah where there is a broken vav. That's interesting. So he's giving him peace, but the vav is broken. And the picture, God was actually happy with Phinehas for doing this. You look at John 2:17. His disciples remember that it was written, zeal for your house will consume me. That's talking about the Messiah, right? God wants us to be zealous for him and his word, okay? Psalm 69:9, for zeal for your house has consumed me, and the reproaches of those who reproach you have fallen on me. So he wants us zealous. Yeshua, Jesus, was zealous for the house. He went in and overturned the money changers, okay? And Phinehas is a type of Yeshua in that both of them were broken for the sake of a covenant of peace for the atonement of Israel. Okay? All right. Here's another cool place where the Vav plays a part. We know the name Elijah, right? The prophet. And his word here, his name is Aleph Lamed Yud Hey. In Hebrew, it's Eliyahu, which actually breaks down into two words. The first two, Aleph Lamed, is El, God. The last two, Yud Hey, is Yah. And so Eliyahu's name means Yah is God. Okay, or God is Yah. El is Yah. Makes sense, right? Okay. And Elijah's name shows up 71 times in the Old Testament, which the Jews call the Tanakh. All right? But in those 71 times, you notice how it's spelled. It's Aleph, Lamed, Yod, Hey, Vav. There's a Vav on the end. Eliyahu is how it's pronounced. But there are 5 times in the Bible, in the Old Testament, where Elijah's name is missing a Vav on the end. Now, why would they misspell his name 5 times by not putting a Vav? And here are the 5 times. 4 of them are in 2 Kings, and 1 of them is in Malachi. Okay, so he leaves a Vav off. We'll just park that in the back of your brain for a moment. In Genesis 37:34, it says, so Yaakov, Jacob, tore his clothes and put sackcloth on his loins and mourned for his sons many days. Here's Jacob's name, Yaakov. It's a Yud, Ayin, Kuf, Bet. I don't know how many times Jacob's name appears in the Bible, but I do know that 5 times his name is spelled with an extra Vav. Well, that's kind of interesting. 5 times Elijah's name is spelled missing a Vav, and Jacob is spelled 5 times with an extra Vav. And here are the 5 times with Jacob. 4 of them are in Jeremiah, and 1 of them is in Leviticus. Okay? So, why? Why? All right, that's the question. Now, what the scholars or the rabbis will say is that Jacob, Jacob was kind of an opportunist, right? His name was heel grabber. If he can see an opportunity, he's going to take it. And this is just their surmising, Jacob took Elijah's Vav 5 times. And the last verse of the Old Testament, Malachi, it says that he's going to send Elijah before the great and terrible day of the Lord. Right? So before the Messiah comes, Elijah's going to show up. So the rabbis will say that Elijah's coming back to get his Vav that Jacob took. He's coming back to Israel because Jacob became Israel, right? So he's coming back to get his Vav. I'm sure it's much deeper than that. I know that Elijah, he was filled with the Spirit of God, right? He had it. It says in the end of days that the Jews, he's going to bring them all back into the land, and then he's going to breathe his Spirit into them. So Jacob's wanting that what Elijah has. And he's going to come back, and that's when he's going to get that Spirit, okay? So that's probably more to the reasoning of why the missing vavs. I don't know, but just know that it does exist, and it's very cool. Okay, Ezekiel 11, verse 14. Then the word of the Lord came to me, saying, Son of man, your brothers, your relatives, your fellow exiles, the whole house of Israel, all of them, are those to whom the inhabitants of Jerusalem have said, Go far from the Lord. This land has been given us as a possession. Therefore say, Thus says the Lord God, though I had removed them far away among the nations, and though I scattered them among the countries, yet I was a sanctuary for them a little while in the countries where they had gone. What we're reading here is what I just explained, okay? Verse 17, Therefore say, Thus says the Lord God, I will gather you from the people and assemble you out of the countries among which you have been scattered, and I will give you the land of Israel. When they come there, they will remove all its detestable things and all its abominations from it, and I will give them one heart, and I will put a new spirit within them, and I will take the heart of stone out of their flesh and give them a heart of flesh, that they may walk in my statutes and keep my ordinances and do them, and then they will be my people, and I shall be their God. And Malachi 4:5, Behold, I'm going to send you Elijah the prophet before the great and terrible day of the Lord. Remember, Jacob became Israel. It's Israel that he's going to regather from the scattering, and he's going to put that spirit into them. That same spirit that Elijah has, that Jacob didn't have, but Jacob tried to steal by taking his vavs. But he's going to end up getting it. All right. What next? Now, I don't know, some of us, who study the Hebrew, and we don't only know Hebrew, but we're studying the Bible in Hebrew. They have, a lot of times they'll talk about the middle letter of the Torah, okay? And when I first heard this, I thought, wow, that is so cool, God. It's not here. Where did the slides go? I didn't move any. Sorry, Josephina, another cut. I just went through all these yesterday to make sure they were all perfect, and they're all perfect, and now they're not here. Okay. What did I say last? Oh, yeah. So those of us who study the Torah, the first time I heard this, I thought, wow, that's really cool. That the middle letter of the Torah is a vav. Well, that's cool. I don't know if you know, the Torah has 304,805 letters in the Torah. Okay? So the middle letter, if you just keep scratching them off and go to the middle, boom, In the middle would be a vav. And what does vav represent? And. So you have an and then you have this many letters and this many letters. And they're the same. And that would be pretty cool that he would put a vav in the middle. And they always tell you it's Leviticus 11:42. And it's in the word gashon. Gashon is the Hebrew word for belly. This verse talks about the things you can eat and the things you can't eat, right? These are, you can eat things that, you cannot eat things that crawl on their belly. That's what the verse is referring to, okay? So snakes and serpents and stuff, you can't be eating because they crawl on their belly. But how clever of God to put the middle letter of the Torah in the word belly. It's in the belly of the Torah with the same number of letters on both sides. Ha ha, I loved it. And I used to teach it. And then one day I thought, you know, I need to check. I can't teach, I can't put it on video. I want to know for sure. So I needed to count how many letters were on either side. Well, it's the rabbis have done most of the counting. You can figure out how many, they tell you how many letters are in Genesis. They tell you how many are in Exodus. I knew how many were in Deuteronomy. So that helped with a lot of the counting, okay? It turns out it's not close. It's not the middle of the Torah. And you see a lot of YouTubers and a lot of preachers preaching this. So just so you know, that vav in Leviticus 11:42 is not the middle letter of the Torah. So why are they saying that? And by the way, there's lots of different middles too. You know, is it the middle letter? So there's equal letters on both sides. Is it the middle word? Because that's going to be different than what the middle letter is, right? Some words are bigger than others. Is it the middle verse of the Torah? So, but the actual middle letter is not a vav, and it's not in the word belly. But that's what's professed to be. So here's what I figured out why they claim it to be the middle. You know, we showed you a little while ago the broken vav, right, with Phineas and his covenant of peace. That vav that's broken, that's an oddity letter. And there are other oddity letters. Some letters in the Torah are enlarged, much bigger. Some letters of the Torah are much smaller, okay? The enlarged letter, the first one we see is Genesis 1:1. Bereshit bara Elohim. Bereshit begins with an enlarged bet, okay? Genesis 2:4. Genesis 2:4 has a very small hey in it. Genesis 23:2 has a small cough. Genesis 27:46 has a small kuf. Exodus 34. It turns out you can go through and see them all. I haven't listened. There are 17 of them in the Torah, either enlarged or diminished. Of those 17, Leviticus 11:42 is the middle one. It's not as impressive. There are 8 odd-shaped vav and 8 small or odd-shaped. And by the way, the vav in 11:42 Leviticus, it's an enlarged vav. That's what made that even more impressive. That God, not only is there a vav, was there a vav in the middle letter of the whole Torah, but it was an enlarged vav. Why is God putting a really big vav right there in 11:42 of Leviticus? And everybody was claiming, oh, it's because it's the middle letter and it's in the word belly and it's enlarged and how clever of God. But it's not the middle. It's not even close to the middle, okay? But it is the middle of all the enlarged or diminished letters. And it is in the word belly. Okay, now I don't have any aluminum foil. We need some aluminum foil for my aluminum foil hat because this is This is for my conspiracy theory guests who watch, you know, the ones who are worried about the moonbeams penetrating their brain. So I'm not sure I hold to this. I'm going to just tell it to you, share it with you, and you can do with it what you want. Can you get me some aluminum foil? We might as well do it right. Here it comes. Does it have gravy on it? Look, she's even formed it into a hat.
Even though I'm working, I'm listening.
I noticed. Beautiful. Okay. We're going to finish. Okay, that just finished there. And that slide is on the screen. And I just finished saying that. Okay, now, here's one last thing I want to show you. Is it true? Is it not true? This is actually for my conspiracy theory people who, is this true? Is it not true? The aluminum foil hat people who are protecting from the moonbeams penetrating their brain. You've seen this drink before. What do they call it? A Monster energy drink. Okay? Here it is. Here I am in Istanbul. They sell it everywhere. Everywhere. All right? And if you look at it up close, it's Monster. It's a big M. But if you look at the M, it's actually made up of, it looks like, Vav, Vav, Vav. In fact, the last two Vavs are not touching. So that rules out it being an M. It could be an N and a Vav. I don't know. But those are three Vavs. They look like it. Okay? And we know Vav, its number is 6. So if you have Vav, 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 that could be 666. All right? And it's called Monster Energy Drink, and it's full of chemicals. Okay? I'm sure nothing really healthy. Which is caffeine and sugar, I think, is pretty much what it is. Okay. Now, what's interesting is if you actually read the can, okay, their slogan is Unleash the Beast. Well, the beast, this is from Revelation, right? Revelation 13:18. Here is wisdom. Let him who has understanding calculate the number of the beast. For the number is that of a man, and his number is 666. Okay, so is there some tie in here between unleashing the beast and 666 and Monster Energy Drink? I don't know. I'll leave it up to you to decide. You know, I actually found an empty can on the pavement near my house one day. And I picked it up and read it. And on the back, it had a little blurb. And the blurb went something like this. I was in Vegas, hanging out at the pool, watching the flesh parade, and trying to decide whether to split my pair of 8s. Assuming, I guess, he's at the pool casino. They have casino, you can swim up tables, you know. And he's trying to decide whether he should do this sort of thing. And I just wanted to be able to stay up longer and keep playing and having fun. And that's when I thought, I need this energy drink so I can stay up at the pool, gambling my money, watching the flesh. I mean, nothing of it was edifying and good. It was all Las Vegas, you know? And he wanted some kind of artificial drink to keep up and stay up so he can keep continuing. So it's not really a product it's not milk. It's not some wholesome thing that you can sell. But boy, they sell a lot of it, okay? And these other these are just little coincidences, okay? But, their website is www.monsterenergy.com. www, and this does not just apply to Monster Energy Drink, but to any email address, and it's the World Wide Web, www, which, remember at the beginning of this, I told you that VUV is a V sound. It's also a W sound. So when you see www, in Hebrew, that would be Vav, Vav, Vav. So, this Antichrist character is supposed to show up, and he's supposed to make a whole world and try to make peace. He will not. God promises no one will rule the world except Yeshua. But Antichrist is going to try, okay? And the World Wide Web sure does put things in it moves things, it advances things a lot toward a one world government. And a one world, you can't buy or sell unless you get permission or the government knows, and unless you have the mark, and the mark is 666, or whatever, however it's going to pan out. It's interesting that all of our web addresses begin Vav, 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 666. Okay, again, this is for the aluminum foil hat people, all right? Not you average people here, but it does happen. There are a lot of people out there who believes this. Also, another thing is the barcode. You know what a barcode is, right? All right. Depending on whether they're thin lines or thick lines, they represent different numbers. The number 6 is defined by 2 thin lines. You can see the 6, and below it I put the 2 thin lines. On a barcode, that's what a 6 looks like. And now look at the barcode as a whole. The first thing on the left is the number 1. Then you have 2 thin lines that go a little bit deeper than all the other lines. Then the numbers begin, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Then you have 2 lines that go a little bit deeper than the others. Then there's more numbers, 8, 9, 10, 0, 1, 2, 8. And then there's 2 lines that go, 2 thin lines that go deep, and then there's the final one. You look at any barcode, they all have 2 thin lines in the left, on the right, and in the middle that extend deep. Those are registration marks so that the scanner can know where the barcode begins and ends. But they use the 3 ones as 6, 6, and 6 as those ones that go deeper. That's interesting because everything now has a barcode on it. And I don't care what barcode you look at, they all have those 6s as registration marks. That's not unique to Monster Energy, but it sure does add to Monster Energy's 666 problem there. Here, you can see it on the Monster can. They've got the 3 6s go deep. All right? Unleash the beast. Now, when I think of 3 Vuvs, I think of 3 nails. And if you have 3 nails and plus 1 cross, it equals forgiven. And that's without a crazy hat. All right. Well, thank you for watching. God bless. To God be the glory. To God be the honor. To God be the praise. And let me tell you, we have a bonus today. And it's a doozy. So hang around for a minute, and we'll be right back with our bonus. God bless. See you soon. Bye-bye. Okay, welcome back. Here's our bonus. And this is going to take a minute or two. Let's go to Esther 9, verses 3 and 5. It says, even all the princes of the provinces, the satraps, the governors, and those who were doing the king's business assisted the Jews because of the dread of Mordecai had fallen on them. Do I want to read all this? Mordecai was great in the king's house. His fame spread throughout all the provinces, for the man Mordecai became greater and greater. Thus the Jews struck all their enemies with the sword, killing and destroying, and they did all that they pleased to those who hated them. Now remember, in the Esther story, Haman, boo, Haman wanted to get rid of all the Jews because Mordecai wouldn't bow to him. And God turned the whole thing around. Haman gets hanged, and the Jews now can fight back against those who were trying to attack them and kill them. And Mordecai is Esther's uncle, no, her cousin. It's her cousin if you actually read the text. He's the one who kind of saves the day on this. So Esther 9:6, it says, at the citadel in Susa, the Jews killed and destroyed 500 men. Verse 7, and Parshandatha, and Dalphon, and Aspatha, and Poratha, and Adalia, and Aridatha, Parmashta, Arishai, Aridai, and Vizatha, the 10 sons of Haman, the sons of Hamadatha, the Jews' enemy, but they did not lay their hands on the plunder. So the Jews killed 500 men in Susa, including these 10 sons of Haman. Got it? I can't believe I pronounced them all. Here's those verses 7, 8, and 9. Notice verse 7. Verse 7 is just and name, name, name. Verse 8 is just name, name, name. Verse 9 is name, 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 and name. Look at it in the Hebrew. Verse 7. And name, and name, and name. Verse 8. And maybe if I light up each one of these is beginning with a vav and an aleph tav. Verse 7 is vav, aleph tav, parshandatha. Vav, aleph tav, dalphon. You see how it's working here? Okay. So there are the 10 names who got killed. On that day, the number of those killed was reported to the king. And the king said to Queen Esther, the Jews have killed and destroyed 500 men and the 10 sons of Haman at the citadel in Susa. What then have they done in the rest of the king's provinces? Now, what is your petition? It shall even be granted to you. And what is your further request? It shall also be done. So the king has just told Esther that 500 people were killed, including the 10 sons of Haman. Is that not what it says? She just got that information. Then Esther said, if it pleases the king, let tomorrow also be granted to the Jews who are in Susa to do according to the edict of today, and let Haman's 10 sons be hanged on the gallows. Now, if I was the king, I'd say, listen, woman, did you not hear what I just told you? I just told you that 500 were killed, including the 10 sons of Haman. And then I asked you, what would you like? And you say, let tomorrow, that's important, let tomorrow also be granted to the Jews to do according of the edict today, and let Haman's 10 sons be hanged on the gallows. That's an oddity there, okay? So the king commanded it should be done, and the edict was issued, and then Haman's 10 sons were hanged. Okay, did he hang them dead? Maybe that's what happened. It's just, again, it's an oddity. And then, okay, we won't read the rest of that. Let's move on to, let's take a closer look at those 10 sons. Do you notice in the writing of their names in Hebrew, some of the letters are small? It's maybe hard to see, but in that first name, Parshandatha, they have a diminished tav. I made it green. Yes, you see it? Okay. Down, was it the seventh? Is Parmashta. Parmashta has a diminished shin. The last name, Vaizatha, has a diminished zayin, and it has an enlarged vav. Wow. Why? Four letters that are either enlarged or small are in these 10 sons' names. What in the world could that mean? And I'm going to tell you. And you're going to love it. Okay, we know Vav represents 6. Okay? And it's an enlarged Vav, so we're going to refer to it as the 6th millennium. A millennium is 1,000 years, right? By the way, from 0 to the year 1000, that's the first millennium. From 1000 to 2000 is the second millennium. Which, what would the date be? The year, well, I don't know how to. The 6th millennium would be the year from 5,000 to 6,000. That's the 6th millennium. So anything in the years 1920, that's in the 6th millennium, because there were 4,000 years prior to Jesus. Then there have been 2,000 years after Jesus. In the year 1500, 1500 would be in the 6th millennium, correct? The 7th millennium doesn't begin until, well, now we're in the 7th millennium, according to our calendar. All right, so the 6th millennium is going to be anything from the year 1000 to 2000. That's the 6th millennium. The other letters that are small, well, we know a tav is 400, a shin is 300, and a zayin is 7. So the small letters add up to 707. So you could take these large and small letters and make a year. It would be the Jewish Hebrew year 5707. You see how I've done this? Okay. Which equates to the Gregorian calendar, 1946. Interesting. Okay. What do we do with this? Well, on the 21st day of Tishri, which, what's today? The 16th day of Tishri, if I'm not mistaken, because today is the day after the first day, the second day of Sukkot. So if today's the second day of the 16th, 5 days from now, but in 1946. It turned out to be October 16th, 1946. It was the last day of Sukkot that year. Nazi corroborator Julius Streicher. I looked this guy up. I read about him. He was a newspaper man who he wrote the most vile and hateful things in the German newspapers against Jews, how they were the plague of Germany. And they got the people of Germany riled up against the Jews, which assisted Hitler when it came time to do his final solution and eliminate the Jews. Okay? But Julius Streicher was hanged with 9 other German officers found guilty at the Nuremberg trials. So there were 10 of them hanged on that day. There were supposed to be 11. Here's what the judge read for Julius Streicher. Remember, he's just a newspaper man, but he was put up in the Nuremberg trials, found guilty, and sentenced to hang. And the judge wrote, for his 25 years of speaking, writing, and preaching hatred of the Jews, Streicher was widely known as Jew baiter number 1. In his speeches and articles week after week, month after month, he infected the German mind with the virus of anti-Semitism and incited the German people to active persecution. Streicher's indictment to murder and extermination at the time when the Jews in the East were being killed under the most horrible conditions clearly constitutes persecution on political and racial grounds in connection with war crimes as defined by the Charter and constitutes a crime against humanity. This was his sentence. Now, there were supposed to be 11 hanged on that day. And we had Reich Marshal Hermann Goering. Remember Goering? I think he was in charge of the Luftwaffe, the Air Force. He was also sentenced to be killed on that day, hanged. But at the last minute, he took a potassium cyanide tablet before his execution, leaving only 10 to be hanged. Which is kind of interesting because Haman, his thing was, let's kill all the Jews on this given day. And Haman had 10 sons who ended up being hanged. And then the king asked Esther, what would you like? And she says, now she just heard that Haman's 10 sons were hanged. And she answers, tomorrow I would like Haman's 10 sons to be hanged. This whole spirit of Haman is actually the spirit of, who am I thinking of? The Esau's grandson, Amalek. Amalek is like the eternal enemy to the Jew, way, way, way back in Genesis. You understand? And it's been Amalek trying to kill the Jews. Amalek. Haman is a descendant of Amalek. King Herod was a descendant of Amalek. They have a spirit of Amalek to destroy the Jews. And Haman had it, and these Nazis had it. Destroy the Jews. But they ended up being hanged, and I think that was a prophetic picture. Why else would God put those tiny letters and that one enlarged Vav in there, pointing to 1946 when 10 of them were hanged at once? All right. Thanks for watching. God bless. We'll see you soon. Bye-bye. Cut. Huh? Did it stop filming? That happens at times. When did it stop? It's shalom, shalom. Welcome. It's not. Huh? The battery. Oh my God. I've been charging it all day. Well, it takes a while to charge up. So.
Any piece you got done is one less piece you got done.
Possibly, yes. And what we're going to do is we can leave this set here, and I'll check it tonight and see what's missing, and I can come tomorrow and film just privately bits and pieces of it. Okay, we don't have enough time to start Zion because it's long. But maybe we can just find something.
They're moving the wall. It's being rebuilt.
Did you enjoy that? Did it make sense and without the pointing and all that? I hope you forgot it. I know what it was. They were both broken for the covenant of peace. Jesus and Phineas? Good. Because I didn't have the answer to that.
You trying to ask a question?
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Over in throughout the Bible, it talks about like Herod and all those. They've got a horrible.
YouTube audience, we might continue streaming here in just a little bit, so hang with us. We'll let you know at what point we cut off the live feed.
Kids and everyone. And he let one live, Agag. But I don't think Agag has, he may have a Vav in his name, but I don't think so. But it did say later, it says Haman was an Agagite. So because he let, this is what we'll talk about for
Generation, is that what you're saying?
each gen.
Would that be generations of Agag?
Descendants.
Yeah, Haman was a descendant of Agag.
Yeah. And this is I think so cool that God told Saul, kill them all. He didn't, and Agag lived to procreate, which brought about Haman, and Haman then wanted to kill all the Jews. Keep that in your head, back of your head. David was walking along and with his band of men, and there was a guy named Shimei. And Shimei was walking along down below, and he was cursing at David. You no good rat fink, you. Remember this? And one of David's men said, David, do you want me to go and remove his head? David said, no, if God sent him to curse me, let him curse me. And if I'm supposed to be cursed, I'll be cursed and whatever. So David showed mercy on Shimei. Are you with me? So we have Saul, the bad king. Saul disobeyed, which led to Agag being alive. And Agag being alive led to Haman, who wanted to kill all the Jews. David showed mercy on Shimei, and if you read about Shimei, when you read the Esther story, there was Mordecai. Mordecai is the one who saved the Jews. Mordecai, it says, was the son of Jair, Jair, the son of Shimei. So David's mercy led to Shimei being alive, which led to Jair, which led to Mordecai. Saul's disobedience led to Haman, who wanted to kill the Jews. David's mercy led to Shimei and Mordecai, who saved the Jews. Wasn't that nice? Yeah, read the Esther story, because it says Haman the Agagite, and when it gives Mordecai, it says Mordecai, the son of Jair, the son of Shimmy
That
up.
redefines Romans chapter 9. I get, and that goes for honor and then for dishonor.
Mm-hmm. So, all right, what else we got?
You know, when you were talking about the, in Psalm 119, you were talking about the letters and that the Jews didn't interpret the Bible right.
Uh-huh.
So does that mean that since they didn't interpret right, it doesn't translate into English then? We,
No, the translators in the English or whatever language, they've made mistakes, and it's their. I mean, King James made mistakes. The Bible didn't make a mistake. When I say the Jews didn't interpret correctly, it's like when it says, don't, one of the rules, and it says it 3 times, don't boil a baby goat in its own mother's milk. Okay, what does that mean? Don't boil a baby goat in its own mother's milk, which sounds kind of gross anyway, right? Let's milk this animal, take the milk, and then take the baby of that animal, and instead of giving the milk to the baby, killing the baby and boiling it in its own mother's milk, that just sounds nasty. You know, there's something not right about that. Okay. Well, the Jews interpret that to mean, oh, well, we can't cook a baby goat in its own mother's milk. And then one says, well, I don't even eat baby goat and drink milk at the same time. And the next one says, well, I don't do it with baby cows and cow milk. And the next one says, I won't even eat cheese if I eat meat. And I won't have them in the same table. And I won't have them in the same kitchen. And then the Jew says, well, I have different pots and different pans. Well, I don't cook my meat and my milk in different pans. And then it goes beyond that we have separate plates. We have separate silverware. We have separate kitchens. If you're wealthy Jewish, you have 2 separate kitchens. And if you can't afford separate kitchens and you can only afford one, you do keep your utensils and stuff.
Sinks is the opposite end.
Sinks, yes. And you have one, you can only afford one dishwasher. If you're washing your dairy plates, once you finish, you take the dairy plates out. Now you have to run the dishwasher one whole cycle empty before you can run your meat plates. Now,
YouTube viewers, thanks for joining us. We're going to stop the stream for tonight. Hope to see you tomorrow night.
so they kept his word. They asked the